This is K.M. Weiland, and you are listening to the 99th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. Want to know what the best kind of research is? The kind that gives you a good excuse to buy a couple dozen novels. This week, I decided to spend some concentrated time studying the masters of fantasy world building. Everyone from Brandon Sanderson to Marion Zimmer Bradley to Roger Zelazny to Anne McCaffrey. I asked around on my favorite social media sites and was flooded with recommendations of favorite novels and authors. Between my two local libraries, Amazon and Paperback Swap, I collected over 30 new titles. I've been turning pages, watching the mail for new editions, and generally geeking out over my good fortune to be able to excuse such readerly debauchery as all part of the job. How is it writers are such lucky folk? On another note, the 99-cent sale of the ebook versions of my historical novels, A Man Called Outlaw and Behold the Dawn, ends on Wednesday, June 1st. If you haven't already grabbed copies, be sure to take advantage of this spectacular deal while it lasts. Has your protagonist changed his ways? Prove it. The latest post in the video series on my blog demonstrates how to implement the all-important character transformation by using examples from the recent superhero blockbuster Thor. You can watch the video on my blog at wordplay-kmweiland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. New videos are posted every Wednesday. Meanwhile, enjoy this week's podcast. Are happy endings a must? In the 2003 film adaptation of Peter Pan, Wendy describes the story she's been telling the Lost Boys as adventures in which good triumphs over evil. To which Captain Hook sneers, they all end in a kiss. Like Wendy and the Lost Boys, millions of people escape into the world of fiction to find happily ever after endings. We cheer when the good guy defeats the villain. We love it when true love conquers all. We find hope and encouragement in the fictional examples that peace and happiness await on the other side of seemingly insurmountable trials. Without doubt, happy endings are enjoyable, uplifting, and reaffirming. But does this mean all endings should be happy? Are sad stories with sad endings the domain of the lonely, the manic-depressive, and the masochistic? In his essay, Writing Toward the Light, the writer, December 2010, creative writing teacher and short story author David Harris Ebenbach shares his experiences. More than once I've been asked why I don't write happy stories. I've been asked by friends, family, strangers, and even the president of the college where I teach. My wife, too, messed up a perfectly nice date by reminding me in the middle of my complaining how hard it is to get published that, after all, people like to read about hope, beauty, and wonder. Is that what we're doing when we write sad stories? Are we squelching hope, beauty, and wonder? Or are we perhaps just exploring the opposite side of the same coin? Life is just as full of sadness as it is happiness. To ignore that fact is to limit both our personal experience of the human existence and our ability to write truthfully about life. To cap every story with a happy ending is dishonesty to both ourselves and our readers. The moment fiction becomes dishonest is the moment it becomes useless. Novelist Erin Kyle comments in her article, In Defense of Sad Stories, the writer, June 2011. You should write something happy, people tell me. And I don't understand. Happy like Anna Karenina? Happy like The Grapes of Wrath? Happy like Catch-22 or Hamlet? Take a moment to think about the stories that have changed your life. I'm willing to bet many of them were stories of pain, loss, sacrifice, and sin. These are the stories that speak bluntly about hard subjects and force their characters, and their readers, to face hard truths and hopefully walk away from the realizations as someone slightly different, or perhaps slightly better. Few of us would want to subsist on a steady diet of tragedy, but all of us are better for having occasionally cleansed our reading palate with the astringent bite of these unflinching portrayals of bittersweet truth. As writers, not all of us are cut out to write the next Crime and Punishment. Light humor is just as valuable as stark reality. But if we're going to call ourselves authors, we need to be brave enough to stand unflinching before the truths of life, even, and perhaps especially, those that don't end happily ever after. Although granted, not all of them will be ready or willing to stomach it. In fact, if you execute it properly, you have the opportunity to leave an impression they'll carry with them all through their lives. Sad stories don't have to be depressing stories. The stories that have broken my heart and changed my life are stories of great tragedy, but they're also stories of great hope. That, right there, is where we find the true power of the sad story, because light always shines brightest in the darkness. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.